The second thing I would say for me personally is the way I work and manage. Number one is I am not here to make you happy. I cannot do that. That's within you to be happy. I work really hard to be fair, to be honest, with feedback, positive and negative, like meaning where can we improve? I just actually got finished saying yesterday, like we really need to focus on aggressively celebrating success because it's very easy to identify problems. It's super easy to go like, oh my God, all these things went wrong. When things go right, yeah, on the one hand, like they should just be going right. But we all deserve to be celebrated and we all deserve to like raise up those successes. So like aggressively celebrating success, I think is really important while doing the work to make sure that anything that didn't go according to plan doesn't happen again. Like those things can happen simultaneously. They're not mutually exclusive.
Hello, I'm Mike Ryan. I'm the Chief Networking Officer at PIMS, and welcome to our second season of Minutes with Mike. Now in my 33rd year at PIMS, I've had the privilege of partnering with companies both large and small, supporting their PR and marketing through customized fulfillment and distribution that delivers measurable impact on their brand perception, boosts positive affinity, and fuels their overall brand performance. And throughout my career, I've had the chance to work alongside many talented folks. This is their story. On this show, we'll sit down with some of the world's top marketing and business thought leaders to learn more about their success, how they got there, how marketing helped them achieve their goals, what strategies they used, and what inspires them. Please join me on this journey as we learn from those who are changing the way we think about business. So sit back, enjoy. You're listening to Minutes with Mike.
Welcome, everybody, to the latest installment of Minutes with Mike. Today, our very special guest, Ayla Anaya. Ayla, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Michael Ryan.
Ayla, I'm very excited to have you on the hot seat today because there's so many things I want to ask you and so many opinions I want to get from you. I'm going to just jump right into it, but I think that this will be an episode that we're both going to look back in, be proud of, super happy and excited. Are you ready?
As I will ever be.
So let's start with Ayla is New Mexican born and bred. Start with that, right? So you're a young girl, you're living in New Mexico. What is it you wanted to be when you got older? What is it you wanted to do with your life back then?
Well, okay, first shout out. I am representing with my Zia earrings and my Roadrunner necklace. These are daily. This is not special. This is me. Yeah, and when I was in kindergarten, we had to like say what we wanted to be when you grow up, and I was like, I want to be a secretary. A really good news is like goal accomplished because I was in fact a secretary. Beyond secretary, I was like, I'm going to be an author. I just knew for certain that I could write books and they were going to be the best books ever, and that did not happen. But secretary,
An avid reader, I must say.
Yes, I do like reading. So reader, not author.
So you have this aspiration growing up, and then you come to the big city. Post-graduation, what was your job leading into moving to New York?
The thing that surprises people, like I'll say this to people and they're shocked. There's two things about me that surprise people. Number one is I am a procrastinator. Why do it today when I can leave it for tomorrow? That's my biggest flaw. If you interviewed me for a job today, I'd be like, my number one weakness is I put things off. And the second thing is I don't make I make minor plans, but not long-term major plans or goals. And everyone is super shocked by this. So I worked all through college and I worked through a lot of high school as well. My job prior to graduation was in a medical office, and I did medical billing, and I challenged Medicare's decision to deny coverage. And if you know me, like Mike Ryan, who's smiling, you're like, she challenged something? That's super weird. Why would she do that? But that was like my whole thing is I was appealing. There's a nice word for it. I was appealing Medicare decisions because they deny claims because they said they weren't medically necessary. I actually really enjoyed this, but I don't know. I guess I wasn't a career gal. I'm not really sure what happened. I moved to New York. I had 6 months of where I was not employed. I had a very strict daytime television schedule. I showered during Martha. That was not for me, but a lot of Days. Shout out to Days. 2 different Star Treks, another talk show in there. But finally, I was like, maybe I should get a job.
Which was?
So, and by getting a job, I think newspapers still existed, kids. And I literally was like circling things in the Times and just answered an ad for receptionist. So secretary, ding, check. And that was at a company that rents music instruments and studio space. Pretty legendary, surprisingly, at the time for me in the music industry. Lots of artists know it. It's even mentioned in books and I think even a couple of songs. So I started working there as a receptionist. I worked there for 10 years and did all the things I could do and was allowed to do. So answering the phones is not for me, believe it or not. Surprise, everyone. I wanted to do things where I didn't necessarily have to talk to every person that walked in the door or rang the phone number. So I got into anything else that I could do. So I was doing accounts payable, accounts receivable. I was balancing, I was doing credit card reconciliations, bank reconciliations, filing sales taxes, offering to help anywhere I could, managing ultimately an event space with the same company, contract negotiations. What are you talking about? I'd never even seen a contract for anything other than signing my life away to like a credit card. And basically anything else you could think of to learn to get ahead, to just say, hey, I'm here, I can do stuff.
It's funny how life does that, right? Like, so you're being thrown these tasks, these roles, these opportunities that, of course, you're doing along the way that ultimately will make you better at your current job, right? Ayla Anaya is the president of PIMS. And as we dive into that, completely understandable to hear like why your successes are born sometimes in those worlds too, of having some experience in those worlds, because your role, as we'll hear about soon, is all encompassing, right? So your next step is you're looking to get out of that world, or you're just looking around for a new opportunity and you look online, or how did you find PIMS?
Yeah, well, if I may, part of working in certain industries, I think, is dealing with certain challenges. I would say in the music industry, and most people would agree with this, it's a boys' club. I think at a certain point, it's like, well, I've done all the things the boys are going to let me do. And that's a really kind of irritating position to be in. I don't want to have limitations. I want to be able to explore anything and just find out naturally if I'm capable of doing it or not. I know I'm not able to do every single thing. But in a boys' club, and, I know it's not everybody, I won't say that, but in a boys' club, oftentimes there's lots of tasks left to who's going to pick it up. And often it is women who pick up those tasks. So although I was like ready to leave because I'd gone as far as I could, and I was encouraged by others going, what are you doing? You're too smart for this. Like, rewinding just a tiny bit, when I moved to New York, it was 2005. I got that job in 2006. I was like, I'll stay a couple years and then I'll be out. Well, 2008, for those of us that remember, was a recession. And I was just happy to have a job.
As with the rest of us, sure.
Exactly. So you weren't giving up jobs in 2008 when there's a recession and people are getting let go left and right. Sounds familiar to today. Hours are being cut, all that kind of stuff. So I'm like, I'm fine with this job. Being fine with that job turned into staying there, maybe a little longer than I should, another 8 years. But other people around me going like, what are you doing? Like, maybe you can do more. It seems like you want to be in charge of stuff. You're always telling us what to do. But also like picking up these other skills from all this like housekeeping is what I'll call it. It's the stuff that nobody wants to do. And I don't necessarily encourage women to do it all of the time, but they are marketable skills. When you go to find a new job after working somewhere for 10 years or more, it is scary, I think. If there's not someone who's not scared, they're a man. No offense. You're going, are my skills stale? Am I behind? Do I know the latest? What's going on? I don't know. So I started just poking around in job listings. I think now that the New York Times was now online, so I'm circling things digitally, applying for things that I think I know how to do, more like bookkeeping stuff. But when you're doing this, I didn't know this, this had never happened to me before, but when you're doing that, you will potentially get called by a recruiter. And like also, you're going, what qualities do I have to be recruited? But later you learn how recruiters work and then you go, oh, they're just matching anyone with anyone.
Right.
I had a good recruiter though, who who I came in, we interviewed, he was like asking about what my interests were, what I was nervous about. I will be honest, one of the things I was nervous about was getting up early because I didn't have to be at work until 10. And I was going to now have to be at work at 8 in the morning. Like, miss me with that. And he listened to all of my concerns. He was very cool to this day. Like, we stay in touch. But he was like, hold the phone. I know just the thing. This is my coolest client right now. And it turns out that it was PIMS.
On my end or our end of this, right? So we don't know anything about Ayla, and we're looking for an account executive, right? Was that the role you came in? Right. So we probably interviewed 5 or 8 people over the course of a week or two. And I think, if I remember right, she was, I think, the last person that I met personally. And there was already a buzz about this smart woman who really was impressing everybody they spoke to. And back then, as we are now, right? Like, it's important to have the right people, but like, smart people don't grow on trees, right? So if you can find somebody really good, really smart, you find a role for them, right? So everybody was really impressed and wanted to sort of make this connection happen. So let's bring her back in. So in she came, and, truth be told, we were probably hired before we even asked you because we were all set with that. And then you came, and I met you along with Mark Lichtman, our chairman, and David Silberglad, our CEO, who didn't have those roles at the time, but we met you and it looked like it was going to be a perfect fit, right? So you agreed, you joined the ranks of PIMS, going on almost, is it 10 years already now?
Not so fast. When I came in, I had to meet with so many people. I think the first time it was just Mark and David. And some of you will have heard this story before, Mike, including you, but I left interview one going, yeah, I don't think I'm working for this guy, David.
We're never going to get along.
Well, yeah, it's just not going to work out. But I got the call for a second interview, and then that's when I met like what felt like 50 different vice presidents, because what I came to learn is like this was a transitional point in time for PIMS, and there were in fact like 4 or 5 vice presidents.
Yeah.
One had just given notice, but I think because of all of those housekeeping jobs, all of the different things I'd done AP, I'd done AR, accounting, I'd been a receptionist, I'd managed an event space. So I had client service experience. I had client service experience anyway, talking to clients. I understood sort of like negotiations because of my Medicare appeal stuff. I am a bit of a rule follower, a student kind of person. So if you just want me to do what I'm supposed to do, probably that's going to happen. And contract negotiations and all these other things. And on top of that, a little bit of the industry, which was not PIMS industry, but a sort of pop culture industry that I was a part of. I think every person I spoke to, it seemed like hopefully there was some consensus. I had something to offer to each person, whatever their role was at the time. So when PIMS called me back, I was like, I guess because of everyone else, I can put up with David. So little did I know that he was gonna become essentially my biggest ally here at PIMS. I was doing him a big favor when he threw me at all of his open work, and I just did it. But he threw me at our biggest account at the time, and that really allowed me to just figure things out. And I think that's how I work best a lot of the time.
And shades of things to come, right? Like the interaction between the two of you, David, of course, being our CEO, you being our president, is an important structure that if these early stages of development never occurred, the planets were definitely aligned, that you were able to sort of jump into that functionality where you got to learn the ebbs and
Yeah,
flows of him and PIMS and us and the do's and
totally.
don'ts.
Like, how weird would it have been if I would have sat, like, literally just in a different seat? Now, mind you, I didn't even see one desk besides Mark's when I came to interview. So I was like, I hope I have a place to sit. Like, I guess I'll be sitting at a cardboard box. Like, I didn't know because I think everybody probably knows that what PIMS does is we do custom fulfillment, like influencer fulfillment, gift with purchase, all this kinds of kitting. And at the time, although we didn't have our own warehousing, we do now. But our version of warehousing and production space was literally also mushed together with our office space. So when I came to interview, I'm like, I guess I will sit between the supplies. And like, it didn't matter to me. I'm cool. But like, it really came down to like, I sat just in a specific place where there was another person who started the same day I did. And she sat next to the only current account executive and was immediately sucked into that world. And I was like, okay, well, someone have anything for me? And then there was David going, yeah, I guess. And then it was like the biggest account ever.
Yeah, I was going to ask you your early impressions of PIMS, and I really, what you were just saying kind of like hits exactly the mark what I wanted to bring up, right? Like back then, it was kind of like, let's hire those smart people I mentioned. Let's get them in here. Now what? They'll figure it out, right? So PIMS, the world that we are in, the influencer marketing world, it's not easy to explain, right? Like it's
Well,
not.
it hardly even existed when I started.
Yeah, exactly. And especially in its infancy, when it was, we were just exiting the press release distribution world and getting more into influencer marketing or sending out samples and programs. That was a new world to all of us, right? So not only were you learning the marketplace, not only were you learning the company, but you were learning as we sort of learned as well, right? So you jump into this world, things are good, some things are bad, you're doing well on this, you're not doing so well at that, but you're learning the ropes, right? You're learning what it takes to be an account person, to manage a desk, to live up to the expectations of what PIMS is offering to our clients. So how did you come to find the PIMS expectations on you? Like, how did that unfold?
Well, I don't think it was ever unclear. But I think there was, picture sort of this world that I already described. Here we are. It's sort of half office, half warehouse. Well, I guess a third of an office, a third warehouse, a third production space. Every single person who works for the company, with the exception of 1.5, are in this space, 20 people, maybe 25. And the whole ethos was just get it done.
Huh?
Be communicative with your clients and get it done and make sure it is done right. And so this brings me to like literally one of the first lessons I learned that hasn't left me and I would take into any other sort of world where I am or I'm doing something, which is like, how do you make sure it's done right? You don't just ask somebody, you don't just like email somebody and be like, hey, did you do that right? Like you need to see it with your own eyes. And it was Mike Ryan, who took me over to this, who knew, this project. And I remember specifically it was for like a home improvement, like consumer hardware and tool company. And it was this crate. It had multiple levels with all these different things, power tools, small power tools, contractors like pencils, rulers, tape measures, all this stuff, and some instructions and other little gadgets to be able to do whatever it was they wanted you to do. And it was beautifully executed from my perspective, and it was shrink wrapped in cellophane. And here I am looking at the team who's like busy doing all of this, and they're putting together, I don't know how many. And you asked me, is this correct? And I was like, yeah, looks right. And you're like, are you sure? And I was like, yes. Go, how are you sure? I'm like, I don't know, I guess I'm not. So you start slicing it open. And I was like, whoa, but they just did that. And you're like, yeah, but too bad. Like this is QA. This is quality assurance. This is quality control, where we have to verify that what we expect to happen, which is what the client expects to happen, is happening appropriately, correctly. It has to be exact and to the T. And so we sliced it open and it was. There was no issue. And then I'm like, hey, production guys, here you go. Sorry. I felt bad, but they're like, yeah, whatever. This has happened to us a million times. But Like, that's a lesson. I think about this all the time because even now, hey, manager, please make sure your team does X, Y, or Z thing. And sometimes manager just shoots an IM, sends an email, but that's just part of it. The rest of it is, okay, I told you that we needed to do this. Hopefully I let you know when, why, if that's necessary. But now I have to come around and make sure that it actually happened. It's such a key lesson. It's very important. So thank you.
And again, I appreciate that story. I love it. Again, learning a lesson or teaching yourself what's important to yourself to do the job right. Like that's job number one. And it's a perfect segue into, again, you do wonderfully as an account rep, you're dealing with clients, but because you have this way about you of this organizational feel and just being able to, stack the bricks perfectly so that nothing falls down. Of course, your next move is, I think it was your next move, you go right into the operations end of our business.
Well, I mean, I guess that depends how quick you want to move through my whole history. I'll say like the first major development was actually being a director of client services, because that meant now I was managing people. And that's not easy. And that was not easy for me. I had one person tell me I didn't know how to speak to people. That really bothered me. And it was from somebody I didn't care for. So I was like, okay, well,
It's always fun.
I could have just been upset and be like, how dare you? But instead I was upset. And I was like, I'll show you. You think I don't know how to speak to people? I'm going to learn how to speak to people in the best way possible. That doesn't mean I did actually learn how to speak to people the best way possible, but it means that I took what was a problem and said, like, I'm going to succeed in spite of this being, for me, super negative feedback. So managing people was the first heavy task. And then we were doing some like offsites. I actually think I was like just promoted to vice president of client services. And then we're having these like strategic salesy offsites about how, like, what are our goals? What do we need to achieve? What are we really doing to level the company up? We've been on this really wonderful trajectory. How do we keep it going? And I think we left going, we have all these things sorted out. There's still these other question marks that aren't necessarily sales, like direct within this department. What are we going to do? It was left open. And then I kind of got this call from David, and he says, and I do believe I was going to, by this time we did have our own warehouse and a second spillover warehouse. So good problems, right? And I was going out time to time because for me, so now production wasn't just in this room with us. It wasn't just people I could walk up to and verify. It wasn't just, I couldn't just be like, hey, here's the thing you asked for. Now we were figuring out how to work from different locations. That was new for us. People I was used to seeing every day. I mean, I was kind of torn up about some of the people that were now working 30 miles away in a different state. So I was going out to the warehouse on a regular basis. And I think I had driven myself there and was sitting in the parking lot, and David called me and he's like, so I have this idea. Okay, what is it? What if you were head of operations?
A small little idea. I got,
just a little, just for funsies. What if you were head of operations? And I am 100% certain I said, well, I don't know anything about operations. And he goes, it's okay. I think you could figure it out.
And you know what? I tell people that work for me and with me, the best advice I can give you is look around with the people you work with, because everybody's really good at something, and take that and make it your own. Like take that part of their world, make it your own. And I think you being able to pivot like that, or you being so, you're not going to agree with me, but I'm going to say it anyway, confident in what you do, I think is what I take from you as a leader, right? Like you have this way of just saying like, you might not see it right now, but like, I think we should do this, this, this. And I think it'll work out like that. And does, right? Like, so that I think for me is the Ayla sort of takeaway that I try to make my own, right? So you transition into this operations VP. Was it VP? Is that what they called you?
Hmm.
VP operations, right?
Yep.
So it's tough enough managing a staff in a warehouse that's really big, but it's one warehouse. But now you have 2.5, 3 warehouses. They're spread out. There's people at each one of them. Plus, there's the account people back home at the HQ in New York that are placing orders and they're representing clients. So we've got production to do. So you're overseeing production. So it is full-time job times 10, right? So you're into that now. That turns out to be the best move you ever made because nobody has been built better for a job like that in 2 ways. One, heighten your own awareness and grow yourself. But 2, to take what could have been a sticky and ugly and, sort of spaghetti strings all over the place and make them easy to use for us to grow and expand. And that's exactly what you do. So much so that we were given the opportunity after how many years? When did you become president?
I think 3 years ago.
So 7 years in, you were given the opportunity to not only lead the warehouse, not only lead the account team, but now they want you to lead the whole group, right? So when they first mentioned it to me, my brain went immediately to, I don't think I could find somebody who is more well suited for this position because, again, going back to your roots when you were a kid and growing up and the things that you managed, the expectations of yourself to grow, that all kind of came across. And it never occurred to me that you didn't know exactly what direction you were leading personally and professionally. So it looked like the perfect fit. And seeing how PIMS has grown, kudos to you. It has been the perfect fit. But tell me how that changed you, right? Like, so now you're still managing the warehouse, but now you're managing everything else. Tell me how that change sort of rocked your boat a little bit, or how did it rock your world a bit, or what?
I mean, I think we're kind of like glossing over a couple things. So like first, I don't ever want to talk about it again, but COVID. So I was made vice president operations, and then it was like, hey, COVID, our clients, you'll remember your warehouse is closing, and you're like, oh my God, please, can I please send this stuff to you? Oh my God, you guys still open? We're like, yes, we are.
Yes.
Being sort of like the process czar, the safety czar, like just the person who's going around being like, mask, 6 feet, get that out on time. We don't have this. Oh, everyone's out. What do we do? Because people we're going to be out during that time. And just problem solving. Could not have done it alone, meaning I had the support of people, my senior, yourself, David, Mark, Lisa, others, right? Like, so people who had been here either alongside me or senior to me. And then I had the support of others like, our current vice president of operations, Jason Giordano. Without him, it would have been like having an arm tied behind my back, right? All these people contributing, our director of warehouse operations, who at the time was like newbie for pick and pack, hired during COVID. I remember because we were doing these virtual interviews, but being able to bring in just people who have our PIMS mindset, right?
Yes.
The get it done, the stick with it, the figure it out, let's be flexible. We're not giving ourselves a choice to fail. Doesn't mean we don't sometimes. It doesn't mean mistakes don't happen. So yeah, bringing in Renisha Connor, who is now our director of warehouse operations, super heavy hitter there. And then having the support of everyone else, like different members of sales and client services, bringing in the business, keeping me busy, me going, oh my God, like we don't have any more room. What are we going to do? But the lesson I wanted to not skip over, which is you always seem so confident, which I appreciate. And thank you. That's because the freak out is behind closed doors. I do hesitate to call myself a leader. I think I'm bossy. I'm nosy. I'm interested. We call that curiosity, right? But like that was me going like, what was that meeting? Who's in there? What were you talking about? What was that? What was that? But about the business, like not gossip. It's not that I won't. Sure, give me some hot goss. But I'm going like, what's keeping this business going? Which I think is why David was like, I'm sure you'll figure out operations, because you're always like, what's going on in there? How do you do that? What do we do here? It didn't mean I wasn't freaking out all the time, constantly all of the time, but it was behind closed doors to those people who had my back. and I could return the favor, where they're coming to me, or I'm telling them, you got to get this done. And they're looking at me like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And maybe behind closed doors, they're actually saying to my face, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And I'm like, well, got to find a way. And then 20 minutes later saying, okay, so here's the plan. Also, one other tip. If you need someone to come up with a plan for something that you know is ridiculous, like it's not stupid. It's just a huge, heavy ask, but we're all kind of stuck in it together. Just give them your really bad idea, and they'll be like, that's so dumb. I had to come up with a better idea to get it done.
Ayla, from your perspective, so sitting where you sit now, like when you come into this, or now you've been doing it for a couple of years now, but there are a lot of things you have to sort of work through, right? Like expectations from existing long-term clients, expectations of partnerships. We talk a lot about that. And your overall philosophy of PIMS, because you're not only setting precedents for yourself, right? As the president, you're setting precedents for the entire company, right? Talk to me about that, like your professional philosophy around our clients, and especially the long-term ones that have been with us for 20, 30 years. Like, what do you look to build their trust, to continue our relationship as it's been going?
Well, the number one thing is say what I mean and mean what I say. So how does that translate? It's if I tell you that something is going to happen, it happens the way I said, that we're communicating clearly, so we're not confused, we aren't misunderstanding one another, because I think that's where anybody, I mean, think about a personal experience with the business, or even just a person, where you lose confidence in somebody. And it's, I mean, the worst case is that they've like actually lied, right? But it's more so they said they were going to do something and did not follow through. And it's painful for me to say I'm going to do something and not follow through. And then I mean, I try really hard not to do it, but as a business, like that's so key. And things change, variables, there's all sorts of variables, and things change on our end and on the client's end and on suppliers' ends. So it doesn't mean that everything happens 100% according to the original plan, but you've got to communicate about it. Like that has to be the way. So even if you're picking up a phone, you're panicking, and you're like, oh my God, the last thing I want to do is make this phone call. It will be worse if you don't make that phone call. It's taking accountability for your promises, for your guarantees, what you've said was going to happen. So like that's first and foremost, like that's the number one thing. The second thing I would say for me personally is the way I work and manage. Number one is I am not here to make you happy. I cannot do that. That's within you to be happy. I work really hard to be fair, to be honest, you know, with feedback, positive and negative, like meaning where can we improve? I just actually got finished saying yesterday, like we really need to focus on aggressively celebrating success, because it's very easy to identify problems. It's super easy to go like, oh my God, all these things went wrong. When things go right, yeah, on the one hand, like they should just be going right. But we all deserve to be celebrated, and we all deserve to like raise up those successes. So like aggressively celebrating success, I think, is really important, while doing the work to make sure that anything that didn't go according to plan doesn't happen again. Like those things can happen simultaneously. They're not mutually exclusive. And the last thing is, I think that you can attest to this. I will not ask anybody to do something I would not do myself.
That's true.
The bad news for some people is I'll do just about anything.
That's an expansive thing. Yeah.
Like, I will not ask you to put yourself in bodily harm. You know, it's nothing like that. But like, hey, if we got to clean a bathroom, we're cleaning a bathroom. Like, those are the kinds of things that have to happen. And if you're like, you can't wrap your mind around that, if you're like, I didn't go to college for 4 years to clean a bathroom. Okay, well, the guy who's cleaning the bathroom didn't plan on cleaning the bathroom either. It has to get done.
You mentioned successes, right? And highlighting those and celebrating those. And I agree. Recently, you know, we've moved our headquarters here in New York to a bigger space, and it's beautiful.
Yes.
Those listening should definitely come up and pay us a visit. But if you look at our overall infrastructure, we have also moved our warehouse, right? So
Yes.
we took what was a series of warehouses, condensed them into this very one large space. So I know that was a huge undertaking. It is unbelievable, the space that we're in right now. I'm a little biased, but it's absolutely breathtaking. What made you take those steps, and what are the big pluses you want our clients or our listeners to know about this new big space that we have?
Well, first, it's benefits everybody. So it increases efficiency. It's new facilities. I mean, anyone who's ever gone from, some building that's built in the 50s or 60s or 70s into a purpose-built facility that's brand new, is you already know that there's going to be all sorts of things that are better about it. It feels good. It's good for our employees' seriously their mental health and morale, because there's no buzzing like fluorescent lights or whatever. It's all, everything is so nice. But in addition to that, like, we've done things like quadruple our capacity, dedicated a third of our capacity to our custom kitting, the influencer kits, the retail kits, all of that. A third of our whole physical floor space is dedicated to that, which is huge for us. We've been able to do so much with so little along the way. All that like moxie and problem solving and everything else, but really to just be allowed to spread our wings and have the team be able to now have space. I mean, physical space also provides mental space. Yeah, so just allowing everybody to think differently, operate more efficiently. It allows us to build more efficient work flows. And also the thing that's on everyone's mind, which is automation. How do we also add some automation to start to our processes? That just makes it better for everybody. But why, right? We're so lucky to be within an industry that, yes, it sees its ups and downs like everything else, but like at the end of the day, we've worked so long with cosmetics, beauty, skincare, hair care, wellness. These are spaces for like joy. These are like sanctuary spaces almost. You're having a tough day, like you might treat yourself. You might scrape up that extra change to go buy yourself a lipstick. Like, you need a face mask. You need something that's going to help you feel better when times feel tough. And we're really lucky to be in that industry and to have grown along with that, and to see all of these, the heritage brands are amazing, but also to see all these new brands flourishing across the globe. It's very exciting.
PIMS has so many different capabilities that are vast within our world, like the shifting brand expectations constantly on what their needs are and where they're finding success. And we certainly, we could talk forever about e-com, and we could talk about retail distribution, but I wanted to get your opinion on the influencers and the creator end of things, right? With the way that social selling is going, I'm curious on your take on what the next thing is going to be, right? Like, forget about AI and ChatGPT for the time being, right? Like, on how, because that's a whole nother episode on how that could integrate with this. But like, where do you see social selling going and the world of the creators?
If I had that answer, I would have a different job and people would be dialing my 900 number to get their fortunes told. Unfortunately, this is it's not my area of expertise. I wish I knew what was coming next. I think that obviously influencers, whatever that means, is not going away. Traditional advertising is essentially outside of like mass. It's not the way. People are not spending their advertising dollars on traditional ads. They're spending those dollars elsewhere. We've heard a lot about authenticity. So the paid influencers are not so popular. And think about that. I mean, you get an ad for something and you're like, yeah, well, there's this celebrity, but they were paid to be there. Somebody in my life always goes, wow, so-and-so celebrity must not be doing so well because they're doing commercials. And I'm like, no, they're being paid a boatload of money to do super easy work, which is an ad, which is a commercial. So I think brands and brand storytellers are always trying to figure out it's a lot about customer acquisition and retention, but what does that mean? Is it just dollars moving through the till, or is it actually creating authentic relationships with your VICs, right? Those are your very important clients. But I think we have to go in the direction of like, I want every single one of my clients. I don't care if they spend $50, $5,000, $1,000,000, whatever it is doesn't matter to me. They're all my most important client. And I think because of all of the competition, that's what brands are learning as well. Like, we need to connect with our client base individually so that they feel like they are a priority. We need to have people who are talking authentically about our products and sharing their experiences in a way that says, this is real. Like, I believe this. And if you're me, so like if you're me, you go to events and then you sit you sit purposefully at a table with brand founders and you accidentally say that you don't think products do anything. And everyone gets, is in a tizzy, but it's like, how do you get people to believe that your product does something? You have to show that authentically. And I think also moving with the trends, like social selling. Yes, there's social selling in the sense of like TikTok shop, actual marketplaces where there's people actively selling or their discount codes or everything. But also I think social selling is, how does a brand tap into a social trend to move their product? So I think there's brands doing this when they see client base or an influencer, whatever, a community, let's call it, when they see a community utilizing one of their products in a way that's not advertised, it's not dangerous, it's not wrong, it's not doing anything that product shouldn't be used for. If you can tap into that, you're going, okay, well, I had all of these people using it as advertised for these things, and now I have this whole untapped market using it for this new reason that we didn't even know. Now we know, and now we're going, yes, guys, please keep using it this way. We love it. Like, thank you for having ideas because, we didn't see that.
Yeah, that's really well put. And, as I think about this last question that sort of integrates well with this is, the president of PIMS, are you a KPI gal or are you more of a gut feeling? Like, how much of the system that you want generated are based on, these key performance indicators versus, I have a really good feeling about this, or we're going to invest time or money or whatever it is in that because I've been down that road and I feel it's going in this direction. Which one do you lean more towards?
I'm not a gut person. It does not mean not to listen to it, but I need to vet choices and feelings and everything else. So what does that mean to me? And you can hear me talk a lot about this when I was on the Soft Power Project podcast, but it's basically, you need a framework. And within this framework, maybe then your gut can go wild, but we need some structure. I need some structure. I think we all need some structure to be able to then sort of actually have some freedom. If you are always going gut, I think that works. I think that could have worked when, like, if we're thinking about PIMS, that works when you're 20 people in a room and like you can see everybody eyeball to eyeball. When you make a decision with your gut, you're going, I know these people so intimately. We've been together so long. I know the impacts my decision is going to have. I'm going for it. We're going to do this. It becomes a lot more difficult when you are spread across multiple locations. You have much higher head count. You have different kinds of services that you're offering, and things just like aren't as easy as they used to be. When I started, I don't remember sending one single estimate to any client. We just sent them invoices and they just paid them, and like life was, grand.
Yeah.
Now it's like, send an invoice, have the invoice interrogated, or not an invoice, and the estimate, have it interrogated, which is everybody's right. I would do the same. We're bargaining, we're negotiating, we're figuring out what we can do instead. I mean, I'm proactively doing that too. I want to make whatever you want happen. I don't think we can operate that way by gut alone. So you'll hear me say, I'm not the gut. David is the gut guy. He's following, that he's the leader. He's CEO.
Again, a good reason why the two of you are a nice fit, right?
Yeah. He's going, he's like having these ideas and whatever. And I'm like, okay, well, now that you've had this cute idea, remember your cute idea is something I now have to execute, deal with, make sure happens appropriately, vet, all that kind of stuff. And so I guess I'm kind of the structure.
Love it. as we're winding down, I did want to ask you a question about, I know you're a big advocate on the rights of women, especially in the business world, right? And everybody getting the opportunity. You've been given an opportunity, you're running with it. And I know that you hope, as I do, that everybody's given a likewise opportunity. I know you're a sitting board member with the CEW. Congratulations on that. What other community atmospheres are you a part of, or where would you give me your 2 cents on where you think that's been and where it's headed, and is it headed in the right direction?
Women's rights are human rights, right? So
Yeah.
that's really what I'm about. When I talk about fairness, it's like, what is fairness of opportunity for everybody? How can we be given the same opportunities and start from a level playing field? And that has been, CEW for a long time, advocating for women in the industry. We say it's cosmetics, but it's so much bigger than that. It's beyond. But it's not just women. It's paving the way for like anybody to have that opportunity to have a go at it, have a fair chance at success. How do we make sure that happens everywhere? And like, I just want the best candidate. I just want to see everyone have resources. So like for me, that's a big thing growing up. And when I think about like, wow, what, I'm never going to win X award. I'm not entrepreneurial, but it's likely I'm not going to own a business. I'm part of like that chunk of millennials. Like, am I ever going to own a house? But I also circulate within groups of people who are like very successful, monetarily successful, which is only one way to measure success. And wow, they're going, yeah. And I did all of these things. I'm like, how? Like, how did this person do all of these things? How come I can't do all of those things? And when you end up digging into it, you're like, well, we didn't really start with the same resources. Like, we don't have the same things. So we were never necessarily going to end up in the same places or spaces. So how can we kind of change that? Where like, you don't always have to buy your way in. It can't always be about like buying your way in. So I don't know that I'm part of necessarily like specific communities or out in other kinds of groups. I'm not anti, I'm just like, I'm more about like, maybe I can lead a little bit by example. Maybe I can provide that opportunity for someone else. And maybe I can be that person in the room who's like, yeah, shit's hard.
So friggin' cool. Right now there's a young girl in New Mexico in grade school watching this and seeing one of their own who has made it, and it's making a difference to her. So good for you for that.
Also, like, I want to say, just in case there actually is that person listening, like, let's remember that success, it can be measured in so many different ways. And
good point.
It's do the best job you always can at whatever it is you're doing. Like, whatever that job is does not necessarily define you. Like, you're so much more than that. You need to just always be the best at whatever it is that you're doing. Everybody doesn't get to forget earning it. Like, yeah, do I feel like I've earned my position? Yes, but I probably was also just in the right place at the right time, took a risk, whatever. Everybody doesn't just get to be the president of a company. And it's very likely that if I hadn't moved to New York, I maybe wouldn't be the president of a company either, right? Like, I would be also just having some, we'll call it like normal job, but I would still be doing the best I possibly could in that role. And that's what's important. I have a niece. I'll tell you about my niece. She's told me the other day, like, she doesn't really get it. School's kind of dumb. She's extremely smart, of course. Like, I think a lot of times people who say that are really smart. And I'm like, okay, well, like, what is it that you want to do with your life? And I actually think she tossed out like YouTuber. And I was like, cool. I don't think that's going to happen. And you're going to have to think about something else. And maybe it's a trade. And I was like, and that's cool. I was like, because maybe a trade is super smart. Like, if you're not going to go for higher education, that's your biz.
Yeah.
I'm not after you for that. But like, whatever it is that you do it to the best of your ability. And always keep learning, keep asking questions, be interested in self-improvement. And I don't mean self-help. I mean like just learning. Read a book.
Yeah.
Listen to a book, I guess, if you can't read a book. But like keep learning. The end.
Last 30 seconds, Ayla. Here's a question. So when I say PIMS, I mean you too. What is your PIMS vision for the next several years? 5 years from now, what would you like to see?
You'll see us more places than you do now. I don't know specifically footprint expansion, but I think a stronger representation outside of the US. And you'll see, I'm not a big public speaker, but maybe you'll see more from me
Yeah,
and some of
girl,
the
of
other
course.
people at
Yes.
PIMS who haven't. We hear from Mike Ryan, we hear from David Silbergleit. I think you're going to see a little bit more from some of the rest of us, just stepping out from behind the scenes, giving, back office some attention. It's not always about what the glitz and glam of the front office. Like down and dirty in operations is how things get done. So I think you might hear a little bit more from the rest of us. And, I'll just be happy to be around still.
We are super proud of this lady, Ayla Anaya. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode. And we look forward to many, many things from PIMS to come.
Thanks, Mike. Always happy to be here. And literally, would not be here without you and everyone who came before me.
Thanks again.